Tony, taking it back to 1989, a lot of people look at your final roster and think that's the way it was all season. We know that wasn't the case, but one guy in particular, Rickey Henderson, was traded over from the Yankees in June of '89. Just how impactful was that for you as a manager to ultimately realize all of a sudden you had a leadoff hitter, you had a tool like that to help your team get to the next level?
If you go back the year before, we won 104 games and the American League Championship Series. We were a really good club, really good. But adding Rickey made us a great club. And in my opinion, if you match us up position by position, and including the starting rotation and bullpen, I think, we're tied for first with as good as anybody. And Rickey put us over the hump as far as just going from really good to great.
Were you impressed by the A's organization that they were able to pull off a move like that? And I know your team was pretty stricken by injuries that season, too, in '89.
Well, we were coming off that big year, but you're right. The first half of the year, we lost Canseco and Eck to hamate and an elbow and, various issues. But we were deep enough to hang in the race. And then the second half, we got healthy. But, one of the points that needs to be made, just to give credit where credit is due, is that we had all that young talent coming, and you cannot say enough about our development system. Carl Keel, Keith Lippman, and their minor league managers and coaches and coordinators. But Keith and Carl, they really had an outstanding program where these young talents, guys like Jose and Mark and Weiss and Steinbeck, Gallego, all these guys, they learned the value of work. I mean, there weren't any privileged characters because you had a big reputation. They put them through the paces. They taught them how to work and work smart. So by the time they came to the big leagues, believe me, they were made players. And I think that the A's player development system deserves a ton of credit.
Yeah, there's a reason you had back-to-back-to-back Rookies of the Year in the American League on your team all at once. What else would you say is something that not enough people know about your '89 World Series title or title team? Are there things that maybe don't get enough attention?
I think that early on, I can remember Dick Williams talking about, I played for him with the A's in '71, and then he went on to have great success as an A's manager, and he was just a great baseball man. He felt like we could be a circus because we had so many big offensive-looking guys. And it wasn't until after a half season of watching us play in '88 and '89 that he realized that we also had a team that paid a lot of attention to defense, starting with Carney and Walt, and then you had Gaggs and Tony Phillips. McGuire as a Gold Glove first baseman, good catching with Hasse and Steiny. And then you had Dave Henderson, who was really a good outfielder.
Yeah.
And he would make sure he reminded Jose to pay attention. And then we had Polonia and then Rickey. So I think probably the offensive dramatics got a lot of attention, but we really played really intelligent, sound baseball, ran the bases very well besides Rickey, played defense. And the other thing, had great team leaders on that team, between Carney and the catchers and, even young guys like Walt and Gaggs, they came in right away. Dave Henderson was a stalwart. And on the pitching side, Dave Stewart, Bob Welch, in '89 we had Mike Moore. We just, Kurt Young, all these guys would step up, and you had Eck and Honey. So the leadership on the team, the attention of competing and playing the whole game, that didn't get as much attention as it deserved. That's why we were able to win all kind of games, low scoring, very defensive games or high scoring games, and be relentless about cranking out wins.
Tony, you guys obviously had a large group of talent, but you also had a large group in terms of personality. And every player that I've talked to already in doing these interviews has said that Tony was the guy as a manager that found a way to keep us all together. And some of the big names, and like I said, I'm not going to say egos, but like I said, personalities. How exactly did you approach keeping everybody together? What was your tactic, and what did you find worked?
I think we had the potential was there. We had a guy named Dave Parker.
Oh, yeah.
Don't forget. It was a giant personality, giant person and just a great teammate. I think we had a staff that was really the key. I mean, I get, my name gets mentioned a lot, but if you look at on the pitching side, we had Dave Duncan, you had Renee Latchman, you had, Merv Retman, you had, 1988, we had Bob Watson. Dave McKay was a stalwart, our bullpen coach, Art Kushner. So I think what our players saw from the whole coaching staff, including our training staff, Barry Weinberg, Larry Davis, they just saw a really cohesive staff that was going to be very personal. We really tried to earn their respect and trust. We tried to show we cared about them, and they responded to it. But part of the philosophy we had was that we kept it simple. It was our team against another team. Play as good as you can, as hard as you can, and see what the score is.
Yeah, our
guys bought into it, and once the brotherhood embraced the team concept and drawing our identity and our egos wrapped around being a winning team, it all fell into place.
As far as on the field, right, you had so many big names, and I think you alluded to this before, that your younger players really stepped in and made the difference with depth. But on a group that's got a Jose and a Mark and a Ricky and a Stu and an Eck, if there was an unsung hero of your team in 1989, you can give me more than one name. Who are some of the unsung heroes?
Well, one way, you got to start with Carney Lansford right away.
Mm-hmm.
Carney is the hardest, most intense guy I've ever been around. And the players just admired he just never had a bad day.
Yeah.
He was totally energized about playing the game and being part of a team. But, I even, a guy like Dave Henderson got a lot of attention for always having a smile and and a good carefree attitude. But, man, when the game was on the line, he's paying attention. He really was the quarterback of the outfield.
Mm-hmm.
So those guys, and then, when you had a guy like Dave Stewart, who's, that stare was for real. He'd give that stare to teammates. And, Bobby Welsh had just the most caring guy you ever want to be around. And then you start adding up. Dave Parker was a great influence on young guys like Jose and Mark because he had already done it. He was already a true superstar, and he really was a great mentor for these guys. So I think one of our keys, and here again, it's giving Sandy Alderson and his staff who put that team together. I've already talked about player development. You had ownership, the Haas family. There's quantity there besides quality. I mean, we didn't just have two or three guys with personality or two or three guys that were grinded out. We had a whole club full of them, and they just all complimented each other. So, like I say it, and I don't even kid. People think I'm kidding. My biggest assignment managing that team was to tell the team who we're playing and what time the game started, and just let them play.
It's a manager's dream, I suppose, in a lot of ways. Two more things for you, Tony. The first being, the 10-day layoff of when Game 3 was supposed to happen to when it actually happened on October 27th of 1989. What were some of the things that you faced in navigating your group of unknowns, right? How the Bay Area was doing, if the series would resume, when and where the games would be played. What was the tough part for you about holding everything together?
The biggest issue was, the perspective of a sport, our chance to be a world champion, but compared to what was happening in the Bay Area, the loss of life, the injuries, the property damage, the emotional scars that were on the community on both sides of the Bay. Putting that in perspective and making sure that we struck the right balance, had the proper respect for what everybody was going through, and understand, though, that at some point when we played, we could be part of the healing, especially on the East Bay side, because we had a chance to win it. I think that was the first and continue to be the priority. And, a good example was led by the Haas family and Sandy Alderson. As we got close to Game 4, there was a decision that we would really respectfully celebrate and not go the whole route. We didn't have a parade because we didn't think it was appropriate.
If there's one thing that your mind can instantly go back to about the 1989 World Series? If there's a moment or a sequence, or if there's something that's still maybe fresh in your memory the most, what is it about that series?
It's the final moment, and it's a very good question because one of the we had several driving forces. One was the embarrassment of getting beat, in 5 games, but not that the Dodgers beat us, but they beat us, with just winning 1 game. So we had that motivation, but the really strongest motivator we had was in that group of stars when we went around and asked how many people had the World Championship credential, how many people had the World Series championship ring. It was just a really small number, like a Dave Parker. You could look around. It was only a couple, 3 guys. So we really wanted, if you play, you want to be part of a World Series champion. And that's why one reason we were so relentless there at the end. And I think that we knew that we were in great shape as we went to the last 3 innings of Game 4, but you don't ever disrespect the baseball gods.
Right.
So literally that final moment when, and it's actually funny, we always kidded Eck that he was not, one of his favorite things was not the pitcher's fielding practice, cover in first, the bunt defenses, he just kind of went through it. And there it is. It's a heck of a play by Tony Phillips. And Eck has to beat, their leadoff hitter to first base.
It's Brett Butler. Yep.
Yeah, Butler. And he got to first ahead of Butler, which is like classic fielding, pitcher's fielding. So the enormity of that play and everybody on that branch, in that organization, that team winning their first ring was humongous to us.
Yeah. Well, and Eck told me earlier that it was also personally fitting because of his 88 World Series and Kirk Gibson, right, that he got to be the guy to make the final out for the Oakland A's and secure everybody the World Series. Tony, really appreciate you taking us back in memory lane. This has been awesome.
Well, believe me, it's my pleasure. Those are great memories. Thanks for letting me do it.